Hey, it's Mack with PriceActionTradingSystem.com. And boy, what a day. We've been overdue for a nice trend like this. And honestly, it just doesn't get much easier than what we've got going on right here. And I mean, there's trades all the way down through here. I'll mark some of them in green, but even I'll explain why a few of them are green. They're pretty good setups, and you almost can't hardly go wrong if you're trading a pullback. To some kind of support or resistance, or some kind of resistance since we're going down. You can't hardly go wrong here. Um, but let's before we do that, I want to point out something right here. Notice that we finally had a break of what I'm seeing as a trend channel here, and we got a new low. So you come up and yeah, you got a nice entry right here, but don't enter that. Just wait and see if you don't get a second entry. And the reason being is because now you got a break, you got a rally happening right here, and you haven't even gotten back down to the midline. So this thing could reverse up out of here. And you actually have a little short-term trend line working right there, and you've had no break of that yet. So you can't go short here yet. As tempting as that looks, that's why you don't want to take that short yet. It's hard to turn down a signal bar like that off a trend line in a downtrend like this, and this thing could go on to drop straight down and never come back, but you can't risk it right here. All right, now if this can close outside this trend line and then maybe come back and try to go higher and then turn down, then maybe you get short. But for now, you got to sit tight. So since I was just setting up, I wanted to discuss that first. And I backed way out here so you could see the big picture. You can see that this thing's down. There's short-term trends within the longer-term trends. And so there's a lot of things to see here. But just understand that this is a strong downtrend. And, when you get a chance, get on board with it. Try to find the bigger picture. Uh, it wasn't clear at first. It just looked like a channel here and maybe even a midline within that channel. So when we first broke lower here, that's the reason these are circled green, because this could just been an overshoot and we could have reversed. But once we started going lower, continue, then you got to find an equal distance, because this is probably a midline and we're probably only halfway done. And look, so then it bounces right here if you find that equal distance. And notice that we overshot it a little bit here and we undershot it by about the same amount. That's a good sign that we may still go lower. And there's really an entry right there that should be circled. Somehow I missed that one and didn't get it circled. I'll go ahead and circle it there so I don't forget. Um, and maybe even right here too. That's getting a little more risky right there, because it looks kind of choppy and you've got a lot of uh, failures both ways. But now we do have a close outside this trend line now. So if this thing ticked higher and then turned back down, I'd probably want to get, maybe even think about another short. So we'll see what happens here. We'll come back and kind of revisit that. But notice how going short there, even on that second entry right now, it looks like it could fail. It could end up working because the bias is down, and we've only got one leg, so it wouldn't surprise me if we get another leg down to a new low. It wouldn't surprise me if we just kept going lower. I mean, days like this don't just reverse on a dime in most cases, so doesn't mean that we couldn't suddenly reverse and start trending higher in the other way. But for now, I'd just be really careful about what I was looking at. Let's back out and go back up here to the beginning of the day. I didn't quite get in here at 7. I can't remember where 7 was. They're doing some construction here close to my office, and it's really delaying me getting here. I've been 20 to 30 minutes late, so normally prices would have been right in here when I came, by the time I sat down and was ready to trade. But there's no setup yet anyway till right here, so I didn't miss anything, so that makes me feel good. And then you get a nice setup right here. Notice how this pulls back. And I got the trend line right off these lows and drug it up. So I was expecting maybe something to happen here. You don't know for sure. Prices could have just kept on going and this turned out to be a trading range or an uptrend for that matter. But you draw it off these lows, you copy it, you drag it up, and you see what happens. And when this thing, I usually put it off the closes to start with, and when this thing turned up and touched that to the tick and turned down, you got to go short right there. And you don't know what's coming, but guess what? Anybody that got short right there, um, there's a good chance you kept a runner all the way down here, or at least down to where you start to get, you hit the other side again, which would have been right in here. So, but that's the first trade. And there's a second entry short right here, but it's so close to those lows. This is, even though we're in a downtrend, you really can't risk that one. And it would have worked, but you really can't risk that. And then you come back and you test this from the underside. Somebody asked me about breakout pullback, so let me just discuss this real quick. You've got these lows right across here. Let's make this a little bigger just so it's easy to see. And notice how you come up and you test it. That's a breakout pullback short. But also notice this new high, pullback first entry, pullback. That's a failed second entry long. And we aren't back down to the low side yet. So that's a breakout pullback short. I like that one. But generally you are better off to wait until it tested again just to make sure it's going to hold. See, it was acting as support. Now it's acting as resistance. When it holds twice like that, that's a good chance it's a double top right at the EMA, right at a possible trend line, right at the resistance area. So you definitely want to get short there. But I think it was okay on this one because of the failed second entry long that traps people in a downtrend. That's what happens there. You got all these people that try to buy the lows, and then it breaks lower. They try to buy it again. But we know you can't go long here. There's no break of any trend line. In fact, now you got a shorter term trend working down in this short term. It tries to go higher. I drew this one in green because it is a first entry. If you went to a smaller chart, there's a couple of swings up there, and you would see a second entry. It's still a little aggressive because this looks kind of choppy, and we're not really moving. It's not really even though it's a good downtrend, it's not really a strong downtrend yet. So that's, so that's a little bit risky. And again, it's a breakout pullback long, and look how it tested that area a couple of times. It never could close above it. It actually tested the EMA. So aggressive traders probably going to go short there, especially if they see this trend line. Then you get a little breakout pullback short right here. And from this, you can treat this like a new high because we made a high, we came back and we tested again. So it's like a new starting point. So a first entry long, a pullback, and a second entry long, but it's also kind of like a breakout pullback long, and it is a pullback that tests that trend line once again and then turns down. So when it broke below that bar and you're not down to this other trend line yet, I think it was worth risking there because now you've got this helping you too. There's no break of it, no close outside really. Now these two are really questionable, and let me explain these. At this point, this is what you're looking at, and you don't have this line. So look at this channel right here, and it looks like an overshoot, and you come back, and you do still have this other trend line though. And so, if you realize what's going on, but it's going to be hard to do that because you don't have enough price action to tell you that, hey, this is just a midline yet. So this looks like the channel. So I think it's really risky to go short right there. And that's why I put that one in green. But in a downtrend like this, and the fact that we went right through there pretty easy and then come back and kind of test it, some people are going to take that trade. And if you did, you were right and it worked. And then it comes back and it tests it again. And again, it's right off that shorter term trend line. But notice that it's kind of getting back, coming back and kind of testing that same area twice, and it holds and down it goes. And once it takes off now you got to realize, hey, we probably, because if this was just a little overshoot, it's probably going to have reversed by now. And every time it reverses, it just goes lower faster. So there's actually a second entry short. I actually meant to circle that one and missed and not circle this one. I circled the wrong one there. Notice this is like a new swing high, pullback, first entry, pullback, second entry. So I treated that like a second entry short. Plus, look at that bearish that bar is. It did try to tick higher again, so you might have thought about going short even right there. I guess I'm just going to go ahead and circle that one in red. Because again, it closes inside that short-term trend line, and you got plenty of price action to get this shorter-term trend line, and you ought to be thinking a measured move down here. So either one of those trades worked. Um, I was a little surprised it bounced here, but that's a huge move down, and we hadn't been back to the EMA in forever, so you know it's coming, and then suddenly it comes back, and that's your first break of this short-term trend line. You got to figure we're going to get a retest of the low. You got to figure we're probably coming down to here in the end. That's a first entry, but in a trend this strong, you're still, there's a chance we could have gone back up to the high. But the fact that we didn't get down there, and the fact this is the first break of this, and a trend this strong, it's a little bit more risky, so I did draw it in green, but you could go short right there. You might use a limit order there, but on days like this, if you try to use a limit order, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute, you're going to get left behind. Then it breaks lower, pulls back, and you get your second entry right there, and then you get a failed second entry long right there. You're going low near the lows, or short near the lows, but you got a failed second entry long. You got a trap. You know prices are probably going to come down to this line before they truly reverse. Just go short right there, and then you get a breakout pullback short again. Right there. Notice how it broke. I'd probably call it that. It tries to come back. It can't even get back up there and turns back down. This thing is weak. Just take every one of those trades until you touch the other side. And then notice that I don't have any more trades marked in here. There's really a second entry short right here, but you can't take that. We're not back to the midline. You got this trend line working up. Then you kind of overshoot it here. I did draw this one here because you got a failed break higher. You got a failed second entry long. You got a big bearish bar. You probably were better off to wait, but it is a second entry short. 2 legs back. It's a very strong downtrend. I went back and forth whether or not to make this one green, and it should be green, but that's such a bearish bar. I think I'm going to go ahead and make that one green. I really do, because even though it's a second entry short, you got this channel working up, and you haven't got a break of it yet. So, we could have just as easily went on higher here. So the more I look at that one, the more I like it green. But I like that signal bar, and I couldn't resist that trade. So that's the reason I had it marked red, but we'll change it. But then notice you get a 2-legged correction back, and now I'm really thinking, hey, you probably shouldn't go short here. But the reason I like that one is notice this new low. It's lower than that swing low. First entry pullback. It's a second entry short. And it tried multiple times to go higher right there, and it just keeps going lower. There's just too much selling, so I like that one, especially for a scalp, because you're probably going to test this low even if you're going to go higher, and that's exactly what happens. We make a new low, and then we turn higher here, and I was surprised we couldn't get to the upside here. The only reason I like this one is notice the new high, pullback, first entry long, pullback. You got a failed second entry long right off that EMA. I guarantee you that trapped the bottom pickers. It must not have trapped as many as I thought, because it ends up going higher once more. But when it tried to go higher again and turn down, you got to go short right there. But when it didn't get it that time and comes back, that's like a breakout pullback short, and you don't really get a good setup bar till here. And so I didn't really like any more entries after that. I thought these two were sure things, but then when this came back, I'm not so sure that it's a sure thing, because look what it looks like if you're looking at it like this. This is all you're going to see. You're not going to see that price action. It looks like we tried to go, you got your trap, you got a new high, first entry, pullback, second entry, and then you tested that once again. You have to take this one because of the trap in a downtrend. This one, but once you take this one, and you don't quite scalp out when it starts coming back again, then I'm not risking anything else, and you just want to hang on to see if you get these filled, or you might even it might even scare you out, especially when it broke lower and came back. But you're probably filled by here now. But I didn't think it was worth risking another entry because it looked like it's trying to reverse here. The only clue I would say would be that we couldn't get back up to the trend line right there. But notice that we overshot it by about that same amount down here, and so that's a good sign that, well, you can read that either way. Either we're not getting back up there, we could still work back up there, or we're not getting back up there because it's so weak that we're going to go lower yet. So notice that kind of double top right there. I treated that like a new high. Pull back first entry, pull back, then you get a second entry. And now you got a trend line working down short term. That's a big reversal bar right off of it. You're going low at near the very low of the day, but this thing is out of control to the downside, so you got to take that, in my opinion. And then you get your break, a new low, and you get a second entry here. But now I'm thinking, you're too close to the lows. It doesn't close on its low. There's a good chance we're overdue to come back to this trend line. So you can't take any. I just don't see you taking anything in here. I probably should have circled that in the lavender. Now, I will say this. When this thing went lower here, if it would have turned up and went a tick or two to that EMA, and then turned back down, I would say you'd go short, because then you got a failed second entry long, and that a bunch of people are going to get long right here. And if all these people would have gotten fooled, which obviously they didn't because it did go higher, they were right this time, although they probably lost all the way down. They finally picked a temporary bottom. So, but if that thing would have ticked higher right there, notice the new high, pull back first entry, pull back. That was a second entry long. You can't take that because there's too big a chance you'll get trapped, just like right here or right here. And but you're ready to go short right there just in case it does turn down, but it doesn't. And then guess what? You got your new low. That's a first entry counting off the low, and that's another reason. And then you pull back. There's a second entry long right there. That's the first break of the main trend line. So with it being a second entry long, even though that's not a very nice signal bar, I just think you got to put a stop there and take it and look at it go. And now you get a new low, and so same thing. Like I said, you got to be careful going short in there. Notice that it would have worked. I don't know if the second entry would have worked there. If you'd have gone short right there on the second entry, 60-50, no, it would have been a 4-tick failure, and now you'd be stuck there. So hopefully that made sense, and that was the reason I wanted, since that was setting up there perfectly, that's the reason I wanted to talk about it. And that's what I saw today. And there's probably, if you look real hard, there's probably some other setups in there. Notice right here that you got a new swing and then it fails to go higher. But I talked about why. Now you've touched the low side. So you got to be real careful, because we're coming back probably at least to here and probably even to here, which it eventually tried to do, but it was just so weak it kept going lower. I wanted to talk about a couple of other things. People get really, really confused about how to enter. Let me move this out of the way. Let's assume that this is where we were at and we're watching prices. As prices are climbing here, I'm sitting here telling myself I'm not interested in taking a trade until I get a setup off of my trend line up here, if I get one. And so I sit here and I'm waiting. Notice that I drew it off those first couple of swings. It might have even been a little lower, like so. And so you don't know if you got a break or anything yet. And then finally you get this bar that goes right to the line and turns down. And so it really was a second entry short when it turned down right there, but I waited on this trap. When it broke higher, I guarantee you they trapped a lot of people that were trying to pick a bottom, thought this maybe was a a range day. They don't realize they're going long into resistance right there, and they get trapped. And so when that turns down, as soon as that bar closes like that right there, I want to put, well, I can't put a sell stop there because it's prices, it's above prices, but prices would have been right in here somewhere because that bar is closed. I would have just clicked here and put a sell stop right there. So you don't, this is your signal bar. And you don't wait till the next bar breaks lower to put your order in there. You go ahead, unless you don't are not crazy about the trade and you want to use a limit order, then you might wait for it to trigger and then drop a limit order and see if it'll come back and get you before it goes lower. But at this point, I like this trade enough that I'm just going to put a sell stop one tick below. This is my signal bar. So I'm going to put my sell stop one tick below it. And if it breaks lower, it's going to trigger my trade. If it goes higher, I'll cancel it and reevaluate. So I'm anticipating this happening. And so I put my order there, and then on the next bar, guess what? It breaks lower and it drops like a rocket. And so I'm in the trade. But you couldn't wait for this to break lower and then try to put your stop in because you can't put a sell stop above the market. You could only put a limit order. And the only way you can get in on stop is to put it down here, and you don't want to go short way down here because it may bounce right there. So this is your actual entry bar, but this is your signal bar, and you got to put your order down there, your sell stop order, before that breaks lower. Otherwise, the only way you're probably going to get in is to drop a limit order and see if it comes back and gets you. But guess what? It doesn't. It just keeps going lower. So hopefully that makes sense. Same thing. If you wanted to enter short right here, once that bar completed, that is a huge reversal bar. I mean, I don't think I would want it. It is a second entry short. Look at that new low. First entry, pull back, second entry. So as soon as that bar completes, I put a sell stop right there if I want to go short there. And then look, it drops down, it fills you, and this is actually your entry bar because this is the bar you entered on, but that's confusing because you're entering before that bar ever breaks lower, or you're putting your order there before it ever breaks lower. So it's still your entry bar, but this is a signal bar, and this is really the signal bar, but you didn't get a good setup till here. So you might have waited on that break lower and put a limit order right there. And guess what? It broke lower and it probably came back and filled that and then went lower. So that's how you would use a limit order. And you can't put a limit order below the market. You can only put a limit order above it. So you can't enter really with a sell limit order. You could use a stop limit order, but don't ever use stop limit orders because especially not for your safety stop, but I never use those. You only use a sell stop, a buy stop, a sell limit, or a buy limit. So make sure you understand that. And for your safety stop, it has to go above this bar because that's the high of the swing. That's your real signal bar. So even though you entered and used this for your signal bar, your stop still has to go above the high of the swing. And so that's another time that you might, if you don't feel comfortable putting your stop above this bar, and there's a good chance you could get stopped out and still see it work, but if you put it above this one, even though it wouldn't have mattered in this case, the best way to do it is get your stop. So if there's not enough room, if it takes more than 2 points to enter here and put your stop up here, then you might go back to saying, hey, I'll put my limit order here where the real trigger of the swing was, the second entry, and see if it comes back to get me, and it would have. And your stop's up here. It wouldn't have mattered though, and that's the way most of your best trades, your stops never even come into play. Usually if your stop's coming into play, you've probably done something wrong. You're probably not reading it right, or you entered too early or too late or something. So I hope that's very clear. On signal bars, here's a little double top here in a downtrend. So when this bar completed right here, if you wanted to enter, and it's not a beautiful bar, so you might wait for prices to break lower here and drop a limit order, try to get a little better entry. But after a move down like that and two tries to go higher that traps somebody, you got to notice that high there, and it tested it once, tested it twice. Look how the closings are getting lower. if I'd been trading, then I probably would have just put a sell stop right there as soon as that closed, and it breaks lower. And notice it did come back, so you probably could have gotten filled on that limit order there, but then it just goes on down, and you're looking for a measured leg or either a bounce off this. And you don't quite get a measured leg, you just get a bounce off the low side, but easy scalp all the same. So I hope that's clear. And if you're looking to go long from the lows, I'll just show one real quick. Here's one right here. It breaks. This is working down. You got a sure trading range right here. It breaks lower and turns up and closes on its high. That's rejection. That's a trap. Just put your stop right there if you wanted to go long right there. And if it breaks higher, you're going to be in the trade. If it doesn't and goes lower, you cancel it and you reevaluate. But I'd have a stop right there if I wanted to go long right there. And look at it go. Quick, easy scalp, and then it pulls back. And then you get a second entry long, and it goes higher. Of course, it's too late in the day. I'm just showing you the signal bars, and your stop has to go below that bar right there. And if you entered right here, it had to go below that bar. And if you entered right here, it had to go above that bar. And that's your signal bar. And if you were looking to get short, as soon as that bar completed, drop a stop there. It's very rare that you're not going to have time to get that stop order in there, a sell stop. And if you don't, when it breaks lower, notice this one pops straight back. As it's bouncing around there, put your limit order and see if you can get filled. And you could have gotten filled on that one or that one on a limit order. And then it goes on down and easy scalp. And your stop goes above here, so even though it bounced, you didn't get stopped out. You didn't even come close to your stop. And so you really could have waited on it to break lower here and dropped the limit order way back here and got filled before it went lower. So I hope that's clear, because so many people, they're waiting on, they're seeing the signal bar like right here, except they're seeing it on a day like today. They're seeing this signal bar. Let's just assume you were trading here, and they're waiting on it to break lower and then trying to get in. They can't get in. And look, and next thing you know, it's 30 points lower and you missed the trade. So you got to follow the rules. And I know that's confusing for some people on how to enter. So I hope I just clarified that for you. I don't go there. Goes right there. So I hope that makes sense. And what else? There was something else I wanted to share. Gentleman sent me this chart. It says and he sees the he's got this working down through here. There's nothing wrong with the way he's seeing that right there. He's seeing it really well. He's got it perfect, just like me. And he took a second entry short there, a second entry short there, and he saw the failed second entry long right there and jumped in and had a runner plus a runner. And he just sent me this one to show me my chart. I took 3 trades a day and thought I would let you look at them. You're a great teacher. Thanks, James. James sent me that. I probably shouldn't have said his name, but nobody knows who James is. So hopefully you didn't mind me saying your name, James. That slipped out before I realized I was reading it. But, I mean, he gets it. Doesn't mean he's there yet, but he gets it. He sees the downtrend. He sees the setups. He's seeing the traps. He's seeing the second entries, and he's trading it like a champ. So he sees it. So very good. Very, very good. Okay, well, somehow I don't know what I was doing there, but I accidentally closed my chart and I lost everything. So, but we were done for the most part. If you want to see how I had it laid out, you'll just have to back up on the video and look at it again. But I'm going to wrap this up. We're at 30 minutes. Great trading day. I wish it was like this every day. And I've seen multiple comments about how easy it was. But I guarantee you, for everybody that sent me one that said it was easy, there was somebody else that was buying all the way down and losing over and over and over. So that's the habit you got to break. And you got to get to the point where you're only trading, you're recognizing the trend, you're only trading with it, and you're spotting the setups that we show you, that we teach over and over, that work. And this stuff works. It's not easy to learn, but once you do kind of get it, it's not that difficult. Um, the hard part is is learning it, and then that's step one. And the second step two, the second hard part is then fighting the mental demons that talk you out of the perfect trades and into the crummy trades. So that's part of learning to trade, though, and you got to work through that as well. So, but I'm going to wrap this one up. It's getting a little long. Hope you had a good trading day. We'll be back tomorrow to wrap up the week. This is Mack with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.